everybody. Welcome to Talk of Glory. I'm Ken Berthelot. Talk of Glory is a program designed to get you excited about Glory Days, the documentaries, and Glory Days 3, which will premiere in 2019. Today, on this special edition of Talk of Glory, we're going to talk with a bunch of coaches. We have 6 that will sit with us and talk about the years 1978 to 2014. But before we do that, our guests on the first segment of the show are the brain trust behind Talk of Glory and Glory Days, all the documentaries, Ron Yeager and Tom Gregory. And gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Tom Gregory is the producer of Glory Days. Ron Yeager, to his right, is the president of WLAE-TV. And gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Very exciting times right now with Glory Days 3 right around the corner, the premiere.
Well, first of all, thanks for calling us a brain trust. I don't think I've ever been called a brain trust. And we are missing a few guys that are very important to the production. Jim Dotson and, of course, Ron Broccato, who has lived the Glory Days like no other.
And wrote the book.
Wrote the book.
Absolutely.
It's been an important part of it. So we are missing part of the brain trust, if you will.
You know, the Glory Days experience has been something very, very special in that originally you were thinking about premiering it in December 2019, but you've decided to rewrite the entire Glory Days 3. Tell us about that.
Well, there's several reasons, why we decided to do that. Unfortunately, the main reason is funding. We did not raise the level of funding that we needed to do the type of documentary that we wanted to do. So we're extending the window into 2019, but it also gave us a chance to look at the project in more detail and expand the scope. And Tom has located some folks who I think are great assets and to the whole story, and we'll be able to expand the content further than if we just cut the piece and had it on this fall.
And Tom, you've had to do some digging without question to find some of these people, but we found some of them all around the Louisiana area, all around the United States, and you've been able to interview these people, which will add something, right?
When you have a chance to talk to people that are involved in, Glory Days, the New Orleans Catholic League football, it doesn't make a difference if they won a championship or not. It doesn't make a difference if their team had a lot of victories, and everyone has these specific memories. And one of the people we interviewed just talked about it's not even the stories on the football field as much as it's the context in which these stories happen. So to expand on that and to talk about what was happening in New Orleans at that time, it's a pretty exhaustive process, and that's why we've decided to take a little more time to do it right, so it equals 1 and 2, that were award-winning documentaries. Ron brought up funding, which is always a tough part when it comes to public television, and it was shocking for me to learn that Ken Burns, award-winning Ken Burns, his documentaries, his follow-up to the baseball documentary, which won national and world acclaim, took 5 years to do the movie, the series, The 10th Inning. He spent the first 3 years trying to raise funds for it. So if Ken Burns has a little problem to do a part 2 or a part 3, we're finding that here too. And that's one of the reasons that we decided that it would be better that we do it right. If we're going to do it right, do it as a lasting testament to the people and to the city that we love.
And the level of the production that we like to do costs money. I mean, it's not something that we could just throw together. We like to do stuff that will be a long-lasting testament to the project. And I think in this case, it's going to allow us to do something that we haven't done before. In 2019, I think August, we're planning for it. We're going to have a Glory Days tailgate party, and that's where we're going to premiere the documentary. And it's going to be a big event that will have tickets for the public, sponsorship. We don't have a venue as yet, but it's going to be a big party to celebrate Glory Days with the film and just the entire project of prep football in New Orleans.
Where can someone go to donate money and help in the funding of Glory Days 3?
I think the best place to go is thecatholicleague.com. It's a website that is set up. It'll have the new trailer for the film, and there'll be a way that you could donate money to the project. And that's the simplest way, thecatholicleague.com.
Ron and Tom talked about doing things right. They talked about the trailer. If you want to see something that was done right, watch the trailer for Glory Days 3.
God bless this production and Glory Days, because it salvages and it keeps in history and marks that great tradition forever.
The richness of that narrative was not just the games, but the backdrop, the context within which those games were played. That's the memories.
The Catholic League in New Orleans, it's the fabric of the city. It's part of the fabric of New Orleans.
The Catholic League's glory gain did not fade with the passing of time.
I think the Catholic League brings tradition like no other district.
Every school in the league was a rivalry at that time.
You know, everyone wanted to be in the Catholic League and they wanted to beat the teams that were in the Catholic League.
I think winning breeds winning, and a lot of kids wanted to come to Shaw.
New legends were born.
Hank Tanner.
He was a ball of fire, but he was a guy that had a whole bunch of knowledge, whole bunch of energy.
Not a Rumble fan by any means, but I was a Jay Roth fan.
The coach, Jay Roth, he does everything. He cuts the grass. I think he even washes the uniforms.
I was proud to say my father coached in the league. When I played, I was proud to say I thought the Catholic League was the best in the state.
Coach Billy Murphy was, and still is, like a second father to me.
Billy Murphy put his shoe up my butt a lot of times, and I think I've turned out decent.
Oh, there's always a Bobby Conlon story.
Without Coach Conlon, Brother Martin is a high school in New Orleans. With Coach Conlon, it was a lifetime experience that I'll never forget.
When they lost at St. Martinville, he cried after that game.
The league would change the face of high school football forever.
The St. Aug Jesuit game on December 15, 1978.
Big St. Aug against Little Jesuit, and here we go.
I was scared to death going to that football game.
Every hit was a train wreck.
I'm willing to bet there was at least 6,000 people in that stadium that night. That's when the Superdome Classic began.
That game was going to change high school sports.
And the league would help restore faith in a city battered.
The history of New Orleans, as we've known it before 2005, was threatened to be literally washed away.
Holy Cross Jesuit continuing to play was a sign that Katrina will not wipe us off the face of the earth.
Even though I played in a state championship game in front of 30,000 people in Tulane Stadium, but the mere fact that we played the Katrina game ranks above that.
The city was on its way. It's on its way back. It's a way of life. You must have high school football.
When you watch the documentaries, it's that web that pulls us together to kind of create that common bond. That's very important to the city, to the fabric of the city and who we are as our identity.
The journey continues and the story grows. Stories about those who on the fields of the Catholic League left behind them not just their all, but their glory.
If that doesn't get you ready to strap on this helmet and go hit somebody, nothing will. So well done. And as excited as everyone is about the trailer and about the documentary, I want to go back to what Ron talked about just a few moments ago, the event that's going to happen in August.
The premier event, it's a tailgate party, and it's actually going on right now in your green room where you have a bunch of the coaches. We decided when we saw what was going on with this show, and we did some special features at the Holy Cross Jesuit tailgate. I was like, people want to get together and talk about these things and have a chance to, talk about their own glory days. So that's kind of how the event came up.
Well, it's exciting. We want to remind people to go to thecatholicleague.com. Thank you for being with us to explain that. We're going to let some of those guys in the green room come sit with us, tell their story, and talk about glory days. Ron Yeager, Tom Gregory, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for everything you do, Ken.
Long live the glory.
Long live the glory. We will be back to talk of the glory with the coaches right after this.
Louisiana is passionate about its food, music, and good times. And very few libations go with all that fun, like beer. Maybe that's why the craft beer business here has more than doubled in the past 5 years. To map out the now 20 breweries, the state has created a road trip known as the Louisiana Brewery Trail. No parish has more stops on the Louisiana Brewery Trail than St. Tammany. Now with 4 breweries, the North Shore is beer central, with the additions of Old Rail Brewing Company and Chafuncta Brewing Company in Mandeville. Old Rail Brewing Company has one thing the others don't. Old Rail's beers are only sold at Old Rail, making it one of the only true brew pubs in the state.
I think I found my happy place.
Doing their own brew thing, Old Rail can be as experimental with their beers as they want. And their full pub menu is the perfect catalyst for your own experimentation in libations.
Welcome back to Talk of Glory. Ken Berthelot with you, and we have 3 coaches that have been having a great time, as Tom and Ron told you in the green room, telling their stories. Now they're going to tell you some of their stories. And as I start to our left, we have Easton Roth, the coach at Rummel in the 70, especially in 1980, but he was there in 78. We're going to talk a little bit about the 78 and his undefeated 80 season. Billy Murphy, whose Jesuit team in 1978 went to the state championship game with St. Augustine. And to your left, my right, is Barry Wilson, longtime coach and athletics director at Holy Cross and a recruiter at LSU in the Southeastern Conference at Mississippi State, also USL, or UL Lafayette now. He'll talk about some of the players, and he'll talk about his days at Holy Cross. And let's start, gentlemen, with the 1978 team. First of all, thank you for being with us. Billy Murphy, that was a special year for the Jesuit Blue Jays. I know you thought you were going to win it all. Jay Roth, you coached against these teams, and we'll talk about that. But you take the Jesuit Blue Jays all the way to the state championship game against a very good St. Augustine team who wins the state championship.
It was a great year. It was a culmination of 4 years when I went there to try to rebuild the program, not knowing whether we would be successful, but fortunately we were, and it was a great year. And we just lost that close game to St. Aug, and as I told the kids and everybody, they won in the score, but there was no losers that night. There were 2 good teams, and there were a lot of good teams in the league that year. Eastern knows, and there were about 4, I think.
Well, and look, before we talk about Easton's role in that, I want to bring up the fact that game was played in the Louisiana Superdome. And it was played before 48,000 people. And they call it the game that changed the game, because after that, the LHSAA was inspired to sign a contract to move all the playoff games to the Louisiana Superdome. And this was a brainchild of Bill Curl.
Right, I can tell you, I was talking about that game first to Billy. If Billy remembers, that morning I went to your house and visited with you. I wish you good luck. You know, you and your wife were sitting down there and we talked about it. And then I went to the Dome, and of course, you know, Otis is my good friend, you my good friend, you're still one of my best friends. We coached together for a long, long time. And it was a great game, and Jesuit had every opportunity to win the game because they were a great high school football team. They beat us 10-0 that year. A question, Billy, I do want to ask you is the excitement leading up to that game. 46,000 people. I know you had people buying tickets around the block at Jesuit, standing in line. Same way at St. Aug. And as Kenny alluded to, I'll never forget getting a phone call the Monday after that game, and it was Bill Curl. And I said, Easton, we got an idea, we got to get going. And that was to move all the state championship games as a result of that game to the Superdome. And we had to sell the state now. I had to sell coaches because they thought they were going to lose money. In fact, Bill, what I did when I became AD at Jesuit, I went back to make sure how much money each school made on that game, okay?
Well, I would, in 1978, I just left LSU, as a matter of fact, and went to Mississippi State, and I recruited Tim Parrington. Was my first recruit to go to Mississippi State.
The guard, Scamardo.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Scamardo. Yeah, those were my first 2 recruits in recruiting in college. So,
Billy, when that season started, '78, you felt you had a chance to get where you were going?
We did. We scrimmaged against Lutcher, Frank Monica, and they was like they had a fair down there, and it was hollering and
It was a show to go with Frank.
Frank's always going to put on a show.
And they came to my house, and they said, "Oh, you can't do this, and you can't do that." And I said, "Well, that's what we're going to do." And they spread us all over the field. Well, we got to move our tackles in, you know, and we just crushed them. I mean, and everybody said, "God, y'all look great." We knew then that we had a chance to be good, you know, from that scrimmage. We just really crushed them.
I felt after y'all played us, the 7-8, y'all beat us by the score of 10-0. You know, I even told the staff, this Jesuit team is one of the better Jesuit teams I've seen. They're solid at every single position. There was nothing you could find wrong with them, you know, except that they ran into a team in St. Aug that was, you know, I think you played 10 times, it'd be 5-5. You know, it was an outstanding game.
Well, what's amazing about that season, as you look at the Jesuit Blue Jay district champion team, was that in 1978, St. Aug has one loss on the schedule, and it's to Remmel. You were able to beat them in '78 and '79, the 2 years the Purple Knights won the state championship. How'd you do that?
A lot of luck, number one. You know, the first year we beat them in '78, y'all familiar with, we used to run the stack defense off out 50 at Rome. But you could only run it if they played a split end. If they got in two tight ends, we got in two tight ends, so they stayed in that stack. We could run to the weak side all night long, 27 power. After the game, Otis says, "How don't you always call the right play?" I said, "Coach, I guess we just guessed correctly." You know, and we ended up beating them. In the second year, the same way. You know, they were a solid team, but at Rummel, we always had a lot of success against St. Aug. I don't know why, and Otis would always tell me, you know, "I can't understand this." I said, "Otis, neither me, but I'll take it." You know, I will take it. But we did defeat them both years. When I won the state championship next year against Covington in a controversial Otis is not here game with the first down deal, you know, that went against our way. But still, you know, we always played well against St. Aug, and we always had a great relationship with St. Aug, that we did with Jesuit. And one thing you got to remember, the Catholic schools, Barry and Billy will tell you, we played hard football against each other. We got after each other.
Yes.
But the love and respect the coaches had for each other, from the head coach down to assistant coaches, to me was unparalleled anywhere else in this country. And I believe that's the same.
I think I've always said that, as been a coach in the SEC and a coach in high school. It reminds me so much of the SEC, the high school Catholic League.
Yeah.
That's the way they are. It's intense, hard football, but in the end, we're going to shake hands and we're going to talk and have a good time with everybody. But when we play one another, it was dog eat dog.
We're going to take up for each other also.
Exactly.
We're going to back each other. And
Exactly.
I think that was very important.
No,
you
you're
know,
right.
and it's all neighborhoods, kids playing against neighborhood kids. And it was just a fun time, huh, Coach?
And I want to go back to the state championship game between Jesuit and St. Aug for just a moment, but let me also tell our viewers that Otis Washington was supposed to be a guest with us on the show today. He is under the weather and under a doctor's care, but when he is recovered, we're going to do another similar show and make sure that he can come talk about these games with us. Now let's get to that state championship game, and you all remember the state championship game. Hard-fought game, 13-7, and it's one that I know Otis Washington said it meant more to him than the '75 state championship, because in '75 Otis said he had a team he thought could win it, but in '78 he had a team that no one thought would win it, and they came from nowhere.
Yeah.
And as you look back at that game, sometimes it's a play or two and you scratch your head, but what stands out, Billy?
Well, they made two plays. And we made
player
one.
two.
You're right.
You're right. You're right, Billy.
And a great picture of you and Otis on the screen that they used to celebrate that game being in the dome.
Yeah.
And they knew they were going to draw a crowd, never thinking they were going to draw that crowd.
I kept telling them that they weren't prepared enough, and contrary to what people know, there were more people than was recorded, because I was told by somebody in authority that many thousand broke in right after the game started because they weren't prepared for the crowd. And then the third section was all freebies.
Yeah, they had to open up the terrace. Right. They did. They had to open up the terrace in the dome.
That's why it was more like 50,000 according to people from the dome.
Wow.
Billy, a question. We all had to go through this as coaches, losing a tough game, and you lost that tough game. After the game, talking to your kids.
I just told him how proud I was of him, you know, that it's a learning experience. I mean, character and all the things that I tell my wife, I talked to her the other day, and she knows nothing about sports.
Mine too.
And I said, football builds a camaraderie that the other sports don't build, like football.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said, my friends, all these men that I have coached over the years, I'm still in contact with them. I see Benny Baptiste, I see Lenny Quick, I see these guys all the time, and they contact me, and I've spoken at Jesuit about 4 times since I left, and I spoke at the state championship, and that's all so important to me. And
what's amazing that you guys can't say that I can is I talk to a lot of those guys too, and what's admirable is how well they speak of you all as their coaches and tell about the difference you all made in their lives.
I'm going to tell a story similar to Billy. Billy, I live in Diamond Head now, and I'm at the supermarket one day, and I'm shopping, and this lady comes to me, she says, "Did you coach at Jesuit?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I did, way back." She says, "You coached my husband, I think." I said, "Really?" She gets on the phone, she says, "Don't leave." The guy comes to see me. Back from in the '60s team. Who was it? I forgot the kid's name.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, he came to see me. But you know, that's the way it was. But '78 and '79, though, as we all know, it was a different league than it is today. It was smash mouth. I mean, everybody just ran at each other, and you were physically beat up after every single game. Yeah. I mean, you would just beat the threads, maybe 8-10 passes a game. You know, Billy, you saw. You know.
And look, we're not showing highlights because the highlights are going to be on the Glory Days 3 documentary, but looking at some of the highlights that will be in the documentary, there was some of the hardest hitting in that Jesuit St. Aug game that I've ever seen.
Yeah, the first play of the game.
Yeah.
We were going to try to trap this guy.
Billy.
I was going to tell that.
Oh, yeah.
That was. Yeah.
And we showed that film about 5 years ago, had the kids together. And Dyer said, "Coach, why'd you call that play?" I said, "Well, I told you, you was going to be a hero or we were going to carry you off."
I remember one year we had to win our last 2 games to win the Catholic League championship. I was the assistant coach at Rommel. The last 2 games were Brother Martin and St. Aug back to back. We won both games, but I tell you, we had walking wounded. We had walking wounded, okay?
The Shaw game that year, we beat Shaw 12-10. And everybody raves about John Forcade, but that kid, his brother, Chase Forcade.
Keith Forcade.
The linebacker.
Keith Forcade, the linebacker, and sometimes running back.
You know, it was real cold that night. We won 12-10, and we had 5 players with broken hands or broken bones in that game. I mean, it was,
probably
like you say, it was week after week, just, you better be ready.
But I tell you what, I love John Forcade, Keith Forcade. Both are great players, but Keith is very special in my heart because his son Chad Forcade played at Rommel.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
And what a career.
I looked up to see whose son he was,
Yeah.
And look, on the next segment, we're going to be talking about Chase and the 2 state championships that he got in 12 and 13 with your son Jay, who was the head coach at that time. You asked Billy a great question. How did he handle his team in the locker room after the loss to St. Aug in that game? In 1980, you're undefeated. You win the district. You get all the way to the Dome, and you're playing John Ehret in the semifinals. And it's a tough game, and you lose it. And there's a film floating around, a highlight film on YouTube of the way you handled that team after the game.
That was great.
It was emotional. But first of all, John Ehret was a great football team, great coaches, Jesse Dago, Ray St. Pierre, Kenny Farrell. Those guys were coaches, okay? And they had some great players. Our kids played real hard, took us to overtime, and we fumbled. They scored first, which we couldn't stop them from the goal line. They were going to score every time with 2 wide receivers, so 1-on-1. But we fumbled and we lost. And the thing about that film, I gave the TV people permission to do it. And I told them they could do anything they want, but not after the game. Win or lose, not after.
But they got in there.
I didn't realize it until I saw it. But it was a team that we were picked to come out maybe second or last, and we played well. We got some lucky breaks along the way. The ball bounced our way. along the way. But you know, after that game, it was just an emotional thing because I was very close to those kids. They were very close to me, and you know, it comes from your heart. You know, it comes from what you believe that those kids did. And it hurt. It hurt me, and it hurt them. And you know, I loved them, and I just said what I felt I should have said to them. You know, because they needed something. Look, I needed something.
Yeah.
You know, I needed something, and I'm gonna tell you the story. And the thing I got after the game, I'm walking across the Superdome by myself. I always made sure the locker was spotless. Leave nothing. I'm walking across the field going toward Poydras Street, and I see two guys in the end zone with coats over their shoulder. And I walk over there and I said, "Coach, we're here. How you feel? Do you need some help?" I said, "No, it was fine." Charlie Davis, Tulane line coach, and Pete Jenkins.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know?
They were there to help you out. And that's the kind of kids Barry was recruiting, kids off your team. I want to go back to your 1980 undefeated season, because outside of winning a state championship, every coach I've ever talked to said a Catholic League championship was just as or equally important. 1980, you beat everybody, including St. Augustine, for the third time. They win the state championship in 78, 79. As we said, you beat them. In 80, you beat them again. You're undefeated in the regular season. You got all the way to that Errett game. Talk about that season a little bit from your standpoint.
Well, number one, I feel this way. Winning the Catholic League championship is number one. I think it is number one, and it was very important. The 1980 season, you know, we felt we were okay in certain spots. You know, we felt they were okay in certain spots. We lose our starting defensive end. He decided to quit football after 3 years. Good player. So we had to take our third linebacker and move him to play defensive end, weak side, dropping the flat and pass and all. Right, St. Germain. Moved him out there, ended up being an MVP in district and MVP in the state of Louisiana. You know, a good move. I had to fight George Ryan over him, but I got him moved, okay? You know, but, you know, we got on the roll, and, you know, it just bounced our way, bounced our way, bounced our way, bounced our way. We played Brother Martin and with a Hail Mary pass, and, you know, they beat us to a pulp.
The one you threw twice.
We threw it twice, but the big play in the game, and I saw Jeff Fritcher the other day, he was our fullback. Brother Mormon's playing that split 40 look, and in the final I told Alice, you know, and Rick Gale, I said, "Look, man, we can't trap him up the middle, and when we tried it the whole game, it's not working. Let's move it down one hole. Let's move it down and trap the defensive end instead of that down guard." First time I ran it, Fritcher breaks down the right sideline all the way to about the 3-yard line, we score. Then we come back and toward the end of the game, and we're down, and Al calls a counter play off the wing tee. We're running to Brother Morton's 47-yard line. They end up prevents, we break it. So we got 12 seconds left, so we call Hail Mary right. Doesn't work. So I'm on the sidelines, I'm hollering at Jay, and I says, "Hail Mary left, left, Hail Mary left, left." He lines up Hail Mary right. Hail Mary right, throws it. St. Pierre goes up, tips the ball. All the long those behind him, just like we practiced it, grabs it for the touchdown. Now, just after I see it on film. But when the play, everybody's going crazy, and I'm standing next to Rick. And I said, "Rick, did we score?" He said, "Easton, I don't know if we scored or not, but our fans are going crazy. Our kids are jumping up and down, so I guess it worked." You know? But it worked, and we won. And that was a great play. But I'm going to tell you, the next week, we were lucky to win the district championship because we played an excellent Bill Cimento coach team in Chalmette, and we won in overtime.
That was 80?
Yeah. That was one of those games that we should have lost. We really should have lost. Jay scored the winning touchdown, you know. But
it was nice to be able to coach your son. That was something very special.
Well, it was an experience, and I think I didn't realize until after it was all over what kind of experience it is. You know, I didn't mind it. And then he was just another player. You know, he was my son, but on the field, he was just another football player. You know, I'm happy to have done it. You know, I'm proud to have done it, but, you know, I was proud to coach every one of those kids on the 1980 team. And it was Rumble's first undefeated season. But some guy came in there named Roth and got all kind of undefeated seasons now, you know. I don't know who he is, you know.
You were talking about how important it was to win a district, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the next year, 81, with that little team. The newspaper came to me and said, "How y'all gonna be, Coach?" I said, "Little, but we're slow." And
little, but we're slow.
We played y'all in the Dome, the first game in the Dome. And after that game, I called all my coaches up. I said, "Coaches, don't tell these kids they're not worth a damn. they really think they're good. Don't tell them. We won a district. I mean, the team was, I called us collapsible guards that hadn't collapsed, but they would do anything. They'd go through the wall for you.
You see, I'm back with Billy said it. The last year I coached Rome with the 82 team, we played in the Dome. And a newspaper reporter tells me after the game, this is the worst Roman team I've ever seen. We lost to Destiny, we played 100 players. You know, so I said, after the season, tell me that. Come back and tell me how bad we were. After the season, he was a man. When we lost to Russ in the state semifinals, he came back to tell me, you were a little bit better than I thought.
In the time we have remaining in this segment, I just want to congratulate all the Catholic League. You played a big role in the Catholic League coming together, and especially Holy Cross coming back after Katrina, but also Jesuit, Brother Martin, and St. Augustine. They were all affected very much so, and it was good to see the Catholic League pull together as a family so that all the schools could come back.
Thanks to him.
Well, we knew we had to do it. If we didn't do it, it wasn't going to be the same. And again, because Holy Cross was totally destroyed, we didn't know how we were going to do it, but with Charlie DeGange and Dr. Joe Murray doing it, and then they gave me a call and said, can you get coaches together? And I said, let me get on the phone now, because they were looking for jobs. We thought it was all over with. We got them all, every coach came back, and all of them had jobs. They all came back, and we were able to get it started, and people couldn't believe it. I called Vic Umont in California, and he said, I can't believe we're doing this. I said, yeah. I called Jay. Yeah. He said, no, we're not. I said, yes, we're going to play. We're going to get the Catholic League back together. We can't let it die. If it does, it's something we have to keep going. It's a legacy. And the kids build upon it. They look forward to it. You'd be amazed that's what saved Holy Cross, because kids literally, their families came back together. And we ended up with, I had a great team that year, lost everybody. And then I had kids that came out that were band players, played in the band, wanted to snap the ball. And I said, you can play, and oh yeah, come on out. And it worked out great, it really did. And it did everything we thought it would do. It saved the league.
In the time we have remaining, which is about 2 minutes, I want each of you coaches to talk about what did being part of the Catholic League, competing in the Catholic League, mean to you personally. Easton, I'll start with you, and we'll just...
Well, it meant my whole football coaching career. I can remember when I was in high school, and I went to a small high school, St. Charles de Destrehan, and I played football there. And when I was going to college, I remember reading the paper on Sunday mornings. The football was getting ready to start, and had the Catholic League and the coaches and their pictures and everything else. I knew I was going to coach. That I wanted to be part of the Catholic League. And from that day on, my goal was to coach in the Catholic League. I became a head coach. And that way I got to meet this good man right here, this good man right here, and it's the greatest part of my life.
Billy Murphy?
Back when I was playing in high school, Jesuit came to play Murphy High School. Then Bobby Jackson, the first quarterback for Bear Bryant, now played at Murphy. And they just tore Murphy up. And I said, my God, this team, where are they from? From another planet or what? And I never thought about coaching there or anything, but anyway, make a long story short, as I left and went to Stanislaus and then to Jesuit, I said, my God, I have gone to heaven to be in this league, and I still keep up with it, and I'm so proud of what you did in bringing the league back. Great coaches. I see over in Florida have great players, but they're not coached like these teams are coached or anything. Jesuit played at Escambia High School, and I scouted. And I told them everything they had to do. You know, I told Mark, I said, Mark, they could beat anybody in our league, but they won't beat anybody, you know. And Jesuit just kicked them real bad.
Well,
and I remember, you know, just the great camaraderie and among coaches, players, and everything.
And Barry, your thoughts on it?
Well, you know, I coached in college for 30 years, but the only place I really wanted to coach after, like I said, that 30 years old was in Louisiana, but not just Louisiana, New Orleans. And that's where I picked a spot. I said, and I got a great call from Vic Umont, who got me to Jesuit, got me back for 1 year at Jesuit, and then the rest is history, and I went on to Holy Cross and stayed there. And that's where I wanted to be. And that's the only place I wanted to coach in high school, I said, is in New Orleans, Louisiana. Nowhere else. And like I said, after coaching in college 30, you know where the good high schools are. And I knew we had good high school football in Louisiana.
Barry Wilson, Holy Cross, Billy Murphy, Jesuit, Easton Roth, Rummel. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your stories, sharing some insight. Can't wait for Glory Days 3 because you'll hear a lot more of this in 2019, August 2019. We'll take a break. 3 more coaches join us in just a moment. We're telling more stories, talking more glory.
Well,
You're watching WLAE, New Orleans Public Television. Find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
Welcome back to Talk of Glory. Ken Berthelot with you, and our coaches on the set with us for this segment of the show is, well, they represent 4 state championships among 3 coaches, and I can't even count the district championships and state runner-ups and state quarterfinal appearances that these guys have had. But to your right, my left, Jay Roth, head coach of Rummel, the head coach of Jesuit sitting next to him, Mark Sanji, and the guy who says that he taught them everything they know from his coach's tree, Hank Tierney from Archbishop Shaw. And Hank, I'm going to start with you because when you were on for an earlier segment on the Archbishop Shaw Eagles, we talked about the Hank Tierney coaching tree. And, you know, not only did you develop a good football program, but you also developed a lot of guys who are now head coaches in the league.
Well, you know, I've gotten way too much credit over the years for the success at Shaw. Honestly, we had great players, but we had really great coaches. And these 2 guys sitting to my left are 2 examples of that. Mark came aboard in 1988, and Jay in 1989. That was the most successful period in Shaw history as far as winning games. And I was able to recognize immediately, not only were these good people, but they could teach and they could coach. And the kids at Shaw really related to them. So very fortunate to have not only these 2 guys, but a bunch of really good coaches over the years, which is why we won. Good players and good coaches, it's a good combination. Tough to beat that.
With good coaching and good instruction. And Jay and Mark, I know you guys have told some funny stories when you were assistant coaches, making all that money, learning from a guy like Hank.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I was going to get out of football after 3 years. I just got fired at East Ascension, and I decided I'm going to come back to New Orleans, and I wrote a letter and a resume to Hank Tierney and Bobby Conlon. I said, if I'm going to do this one more time, I'm going to do it the right way. Coach Hank answered first, and I consider him a mentor. Those are the most enjoyable 3 years of my coaching career, believe it or not.
Yeah, Hank's being modest about this. He really taught us a great deal, and I was really fortunate to be able to get on when I did. I just graduated from college. I was an equipment manager at LSU, and I had some friends that had gone to Shaw, but I was talking to Al Pontiff one day. I know he's very, very close to Jay as well, and I'd worked for Al under Bob Conlon for a little while, and he said, you know what, you need to call Hank Tierney. And he said, no, I'm going to call Hank Tierney. I know he's got an opening. And about an hour later, I was on the West Bank sitting in front of Hank and talking about possibilities of getting onto his staff. And it worked out. And I mean, I know Jay agrees with me on this. I mean, we just learned a whole lot of football and a whole lot about handling kids and just a whole lot about high school football and especially this league.
Well, in this league, you've got these guys on your staff. You also have some players named Joseph, a whole bunch of them, including Vance and Mickey, and you're building something that's going to eventually win you your first state championship.
Yeah, no doubt. Great players, like we said. And you know the best thing about these 2 guys to my left, and I know it's about the Catholic League, but to this day, they still are in touch with guys they coached at Shaw. And I've always said this, you know, if the only reason you coach is to win games, you're defeating the purpose. You know, you're building relationships and you're trying to help kids. And I think the glory of the Catholic League, as much as anything else, was the quality of the coaches and how they helped and related to the kids. And you know, not only our kids, but all kids that these guys are coaches. And a lot of the coaches that I've had, very fortunate to have been coached by people like this.
And you guys can't say this as coaches, but I said this on the earlier segment. As media, we talk to the players all the time. And if you could hear what we hear on how they respect you all because of the difference you made in their lives, not only as head coaches, but when you were a position coach, when you were their assistant coach. It warms our hearts to hear that, and I don't know if you get that, but it's there.
Sometimes you don't see the big picture, and you really need to step back and do that. A few days ago, one of the kids that played offensive line for us at Shaw, Kevin Cottier, he sent me a text and a picture of his son making the All-State team in Pearl, Mississippi. And it was just really good to hear from him, and he had some nice words to say. So that's the biggest part of this whole thing. But going back to us as coaches, I mean, I've always had really good teachers who coached us, either in the profession or coaching in high school. Bob Conlon, Al Pontiff, Hank certainly. Vic Umont was a great mentor of mine. And you're around these people, and they do it the right way. And you can't help but learn that way and kind of go with it from there. So that's kind of where you get your success from, I think.
Well, let's take this from a state championship category, because Glory Days 3 will start with 1978, and Billy Murphy just talked about that. And let's talk about the Shaw Dynasty, your state championship, and the role you played, your players played in getting you to that point, and even these guys, the role they played in helping you build that program.
Well, I think one of the things that's funny is that the Shaw team that won the state championship was probably had 5 teams that I coached that were better on paper as far as talent than that team. And it just goes to show, it's not always about having the best players. It's about the team that comes together. And, you got to have some opportunities. St. Aug beat us 35-0 in the regular season that year. Got eliminated in Covington week 3. And had we had to play St. Aug again, I don't know if we'd have won that state championship, because that was a great football team. But they lost, and that's the nature of the playoffs. They had to go to Covington and beat a good Covington team, which they didn't do. And then we got Covington in the state championship game, and we were really good on defense that year, and Covington was really good on offense. So our defense actually controlled that game. And I tell you, we've been there 4 times, but there's nothing like winning the state championship. It's a tremendous feeling.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, in 19 seasons, 11 district titles, you made it to that state game 3 more times, and all of that very special. But was there anything more special than coaching the Josephs, all of them?
Yeah, the Josephs are synonymous with Shaw football, no doubt. But just like Mark and Jay said, so many great kids, though, that we had the opportunity to coach, and so many of them that I'm still in touch with. We had a 30-year reunion of the state championship team in the summer, and they probably had 25, 30 kids there. It's probably the best day I've enjoyed in 20 years with them guys, just reminiscing. And it's amazing how they remember everything. I mean, they remember things that, I'm saying, how do you remember that? Things that happened in practice and things that, to go along with what you said about the impact that you have on them. I don't think, as I've gotten older, I've realized that. But when you're a young coach, I don't think you really understand, just how important it is what you do for these kids and how you mentor them and how you guide them. And I think that's a special part of being a coach,
That's a little bit of the Josephs.
Yeah, I was coaching right there. We called a play to the left in the reverse field and went back to the other side and scored. That was a great coaching job.
That was against Holy Cross. And just always a pleasure to watch those guys run the football. And Jay, I'm going to switch over to you, and again, we're taking this chronologically. So of the 3 coaches sitting here, the next 2 state championships come in 2012 and 2013. Very special for you. You've got Chase Forcade, and just a very special time to be the head coach at Rummel.
When you become a coach, I don't think winning a state championship is ever one of your goals. I mean, I never really thought about it. To me, coaching the Catholic League was always, you want to be a Catholic League champion. And it was pretty hard, because when I got to Rummel hadn't won a district championship since '85. So we finally won one in '99. That's 15 years had gone by. And to get to a state championship in 2009, then win one in 2012, it was never something that you aspire to do from day one. It just, once you get close to it, like week 3, semifinals, you say, wow, we might have a chance to get there. Then all of a sudden it happens.
As you look at each game, you look at the Bar game, you look at the Bird game, memories that you would want to tell our viewers as you think back of those 2 great wins?
Again, you have to have great players and a great coaching staff, which we had. But going up against Barb, they were averaging 45, 50 points a game. They had just come back and scored 3 touchdowns in a couple minutes to beat West Monroe in the semifinals. And we had to slow the game down. And I remember watching St. James play Evangel years ago in the state championship, where Rick Gailey slowed the game down to where Evangel only had so many chances with the ball. And I said, that's what we had to do to beat Bar. We had to limit their opportunities to score. When we had it, we had to score and break serve somewhere. So at halftime, I think the score was 14-13, and Bar was really flustered that they hadn't had the ball. I mean, we ran it down to 1 second. We'd break the huddle with 15 seconds and just wait till the clock went down. And in the fourth quarter, we blew it open. And it was very exciting. I mean, my excitement at the end of the game was something kind of out of character for me. But being that it was a state championship, I can see why. And it's a shame I really haven't enjoyed that game yet. I might enjoy it one day, but it was good. But then again, that was also the last true state championship in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to remember the most. That was where you had to win 5 games in the playoffs to get a state championship.
Yeah, no splits.
That was a true one.
Yeah.
And that's the last one.
That's special. And of course, your victory over Byrd, our director for this is Will Hill. He's a graduate of Byrd. He says it hurt him, but he was happy for you because he liked Jay Roth.
Well, we were repeating our trip to the Dome, but Byrd hadn't been there since the 60s.
Yeah.
Maybe when they played Jesuit back in the 60s somehow. So for them, it was really huge. And we were down by 9 points at half. And 4K came out, Chase came out and threw about an 82-yard touchdown pass to start the second half to Stephen Dunbar. And we scored with 3 or 4 minutes left to win it 23-22, win by 1.
When you were a quarterback for your dad, and y'all got so close in 1980, the undefeated season, you got to the semifinals in the against Everett in the Dome, and you didn't get there. And it's just so close. You felt like maybe this was sort of a vindication for him that you come back and win. His son now coaching wins a couple of states.
I don't think so. I think he enjoyed it with me.
Yeah.
I remember meeting him in the tunnel after the game, and he was excited. And he came back to school after, and he's been a part of Rummel. You know, ever since I got the job, he's always been welcome back. The kids know him, the coaches know him. But I think he was just proud to see Rummel win a state championship, and he was part of it, just like Don Perrette was part of it. He was at the game that night.
Yeah.
So to have those guys who had put in so much time over the years for Archbishop Rummel, it was nice to win one and share it with them.
And then from your 2 state championships, Mark Sanji comes back to Jesuit in 2014. He's there from 92 to 96, takes a little break, goes into pharmaceutical sales, spends a little time in the broadcast booth with me. Boy, we had some good times, which is enough to drive anybody back to coaching. I can understand that. But you go back in 2014, high expectations. And sometimes it's not easy to follow up on high expectations, but you did. And you took this team all the way through. Great state championship win, one for the ages, hadn't been done in a long time at Jesuit.
Well, yeah, it was, I think 1960 was the last time that Jesuit had a state championship. And we had gotten close a number of times in the 90s, getting eliminated in the semifinals. And it was a great thing for our community. And I'm going to tell you, I fell into that situation. I mean, the program was in great shape. Everything was kind of lined up on it, kind of ready to go. We had some really good players and a great staff in place. And I didn't do too much. I changed a couple of things, and they were very subtle, and the kids responded. We had a great year, had a knockdown drag out with Hank's team in Ponchatoula, where we came out on the bad end of that for us, and then lost to Jay's Rummel team.
He's smiling
by really by really close score
smiling a little bit
earlier. But all those years we got close in the semifinals. I realized it was very tough. It was really, really hard to get to the state championship and win. But I didn't really fully realize that until you do it, because so many things have to happen. So many things have to go your way that are, I guess you could call it luck. I mean, the ball needs to bounce your way a couple of times, and you need to make some things happen that are uncharacteristic to maybe your football team. But we got to the Dome and didn't have much of a break. We had played Rummel that Saturday night, and then had to play Curtis in the finals that Friday night. And I just remember, I think the last thing I thought to myself right before the game was, well, nobody's giving us much of a chance. It's Curtis, we're supposed to lose. Let's just go play. And to our kids' credit and our coaches, they didn't really care who we were playing. We just lined up, and we were very physical and played really hard, good Jesuit football. And it was a night, just a heck of a night to remember, and want to get back there again one day. It'd be nice.
I'm glad you said that. When Glory Days 3 comes out and people see, again, more of the highlights of that, the hitting was ferocious in that game.
Yeah, we take a lot of pride in being physical at Jesuit, and it's the way we practice, the way we work, and I think if you're going to survive in our league, you absolutely have to do that. You have to be a really physical football team on both sides of the ball. And so our goal with our kids is to have that just be second nature, where you line up, you're physical, and you don't know any better. And our kids respond to that.
Brother Martin Alum, how much of Bobby Conlon is with you on the sideline? And besides him, who were the coaches that really made a difference in your life to help you be as successful as you are today?
Well,
I ask each of you all that.
You know, really everybody I've worked with. I haven't worked with a bad football coach. I haven't worked on a bad staff. I've had just tremendous mentors, and it started with Bob Conlon because I played for him, and then he's the one that got me into coaching to begin with, and I'm forever grateful for that. He taught a lot of great life lessons. You know, he talked to us every day, just about little bitty things that you could get better at as a person and as our football team. And these are just classic things that you want your kids to hang on to forever. They're timeless. And then I get a chance to work for Hank, and all the coaches that we had there as assistants. It was just a learning experience every day, especially for a guy who's 22, 23 years old coming into this situation. You're just absorbing all of that stuff, and you carry it with you over the years. And Jay and I had a chance to work together at Jesuit, and it was a great experience all around. But I've always had really good teachers.
Jay, besides your dad.
Well, Ken, if you don't mind, I need to share two stories, okay?
I'd love to.
Coach Hank.
That's what this is all about.
The best teams at Shaw were probably the teams that got knocked out in the quarters by Thibodeau, right?
No doubt.
So we're in Thibodeau, and we're winning 35-7.5, beating Thibodeau high. I said, Coach Hank, the coaches from Washington are knocking on the door. They want to trade film right now at half. You want me to go ahead and trade? He says, Jay, wait till the first drive's over, the third quarter, then you can go ahead and trade. And we ended up losing 42. Yeah, we lost 42-41.
Lost it all.
And then great teams, Ron. I mean, we were ranked fourth in USA Today, undefeated. Never lost a district game for 3 years at Shaw during that run, you know. Super players, great coaches, great time. And then at Jesuit, my last year at Jesuit, we had run through the playoffs. We had beaten Reggie Wayne and Aaron, Foster at West Jeff.
Yep.
We had knocked off some great teams, and we were playing Washington in the semifinals. And at halftime, we're losing 42-7. A quarterback had thrown 6 interceptions at half. Remember, Paris? I said, "So, do you want to throw the ball anymore?" He says, "No, let's just go home." It was done, you know.
It's been a nice year. Let's get out of here, you know?
But no, Coach Hank's been a great influence.
Yeah.
Got to work with guys like, you know, Mark. The staff he had at Shaw was phenomenal. You know, and then guys who influenced me as a player: Al Poniff, Rick Daly, my father in college, Joe Clark. So, you know, one thing I appreciate in my life is that I've kept in touch with the guys who coach me and the guys I've coached with.
Hey, look, you've been in this as a head coach more years than Mark has. If he stays in it long, he'll be in this 200-plus list. But right now, you're 8th on the active list. With 228 wins, if I got that counted right. I might be off a little bit. Hank, you're 4th on the active list right now of coaches in Louisiana.
I'm going backwards right now, but that's okay.
But people look at you and go, wow, look at you. You've got over a dozen people off your coaches tree who become head coaches. Who was the influence in your life?
I'm going to tell you, I had one influence, and his name was Joe Zimmerman. And I know you had him in here, you know, for a segment. And I say one, more than one, because what Joe Zimmerman did for me was he said, come on, we're going to go get better as coaches. And he took a young, inexperienced assistant coach, and he took me all over to talk to college. That was his big thing, you know. High school coaches teach class all day. You're not going to learn nothing from them. Go see the college guys. And we would go. We would get in the car. We would go here. We would go there. We made a lot. Met Bear Bryant, you know, when we went to Alabama one time. And Joe said, look, you're going to run the defense. We're going to find out what we need to know. And I was very fortunate. I worked for him for 6 years and could not have had a better mentor than him. He was respected by the players, taught us how to work. It would change coaches every year. Nobody ever stayed at Shaw. They just moved on. And he didn't bother him. He just, hey, let's get to work. You know, that mentality kind of came to me. Let's just go to work. You know, deal what you got to deal with, go to work, do the best job you can. And then, like I said, I get the job at Shaw, and I'm blessed to get guys like this and 100 more that we could just keep naming that didn't end up being head coaches. I mean, them guys, one year, every guy on that staff became a successful head coach. You know, and we say this all the time. I tell my coaches now, man, it's just not like it used to be. You used to have to earn your spurs in. I mean, you had to pay the price. And it's a lot different now, but I'm just so fortunate that I've been able to come into touch with so many quality people and have kept relationships with them guys over the years.
In the 2.5 minutes we have remaining, what did being part of the Catholic League, competing and coaching in the Catholic League mean to you?
Without a doubt, the best times of my coaching life, without a doubt. Built quality relationships, not only with players, but with coaches. And it was just always that thing about, as the league, I remember Randall used to say the league. It was just always that thing about, man, go and play Rummel, for the megaphone. Go and play Jesuit. I mean, just, you knew them, you knew one another, you were friends, you competed, but once the game started, it was a war. And then after that, you shook hands and, see you around, see you in the coaching circuit.
Yeah, I wish Henry was here to talk with us, but he's the late Henry Rando. Jay, what did it mean?
We're just coaching kids with great character, great values, kids who are hungry to succeed, and then coaching against the coaches and getting to know them. And like I say, I remember Coach Hank and I, as we got close to playing each other, we would stop talking about a week or two before. And then I was so mad from getting my butt whipped the first 7 years, we wouldn't talk for 3 or 4 weeks after,
Yeah.
But still to this day, he'd text me after games. Mark and I text after games, talk to each other. So we've kept relationships with players too. And that's what Coach Hank said earlier. To have players from your former schools. I taught at Shaw, I taught at Jesuit, I've been at Rummel. When I was playing, Shaw and Jesuit were enemies. But as a coach, guess what? It's all good kids, man. It's all good kids.
Mark, same question.
Yeah, the relationships are timeless. I really can't imagine working in another league. I think it would really be foreign because it's really, really competitive. The coaching, you've really got to do your homework in this league because if you don't, it's going to catch up to you in a heartbeat and it's going to stick out like a sore thumb and you're going to get your rear end handed to you. But the relationships with the kids, the relationships especially with the coaches, like both of these guys were saying. We talk all the time and share ideas here and there, things like that, but not too many ideas, that's for sure.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Jay Roth, Rummel, Jesuits, Mark Sanji, Shaw, and now Ponchatoula's Hank Tierney. I want to thank you all for sharing stories with us on this edition of Talk of Glory. And folks, we hope you've enjoyed this. If you want to help support Glory Days 3, please visit the website thecatholicleague.com. For all of our coaches that took part in the Coaches Roundtable today, I'm Ken Berthelot. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you soon.